President Trump is in Canada for the G7 summit with huge implications on things like trade deals, but also a brewing war. This could be extremely fraught, with some U.S. allies wondering if Donald Trump is with them or against them. All the while, the G7 nations grappling with the threat of the potential of an all-out war in the Middle East. CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, with me right now. All right, with so many things that are sort of heavily weighing over this summit, what are you learning about what the people of these countries think about Donald Trump and whether he is with or against them?
Yeah, I think that this title slide says it all, why Trump faces a tough room at the G7. That is because the countries outside the U.S. who are part of the G7, those folks, not big fans of Donald Trump. Not big fans at all. No confidence Trump will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. Look at this. All these numbers are at least at 60% or above. You could start off here at the bottom, Japan 61, the UK 62. You go to that next row, Italy 68. We're getting higher and higher and higher. Canada 77. And finally, France 78%. And Germany, 81% of Germans have no confidence that Donald Trump will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. We're looking at a supermajority in all 6 of these G7 countries besides the U.S. They do not like Donald Trump. They have no confidence in him to do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. And I think that will inform some of the leaders there in those countries going into this G7 summit with Donald Trump. And again, he's just going to face a tough room because those folks in those countries, they don't really like Donald Trump.
How much has this changed since Trump was elected?
Yeah, this is, I think, you see all these numbers here and you go, okay, has this always been the case that there's been such low confidence in the U.S. leader? Take a look here. Okay, no confidence that the U.S. president will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. We're going to look at a median of those 6 countries that we just saw on the other slide. You see it here. In 2025, 73%. The median in those countries have no confidence that Donald Trump will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. With Joe Biden, look how much lower that number was. It was basically 50-50 at 51%. So the percentage of those G7 countries that have no confidence that Donald Trump will do the right thing has gone completely through the roof. We're talking about a 22-point jump in just a year's time. Rough room, tough room for Donald Trump.
A tough room, even with one of our closest allies, both by land and by culture, Canada. Do they want even a deal with Trump?
Yeah, this to me is the number that kind of says it all, right? We're talking about allies of the United States here. No ally has been closer to us over the years than Canada has been, but Canadians are reducing reliance on the U.S. as a trade partner. Look at this. 91% say that, yes, that they, in fact, that Canadians should, in fact, reduce reliance on the U.S. as a trade partner. You never see numbers that high. I'm laughing because it's just unprecedented compared to just 9% who disagree. 9%, that's about the percentage of Americans who believe we faked the moon landing. When you're in this territory, you know that we're in a lot of trouble. Donald Trump's in a lot of trouble when it comes to Canadians' views on him.
That is an unprecedented number in any poll, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
All right. Harry Enton, thank you so much.
Thank you.
President Trump is in Calgary for the G7 summit. In just a few hours, he will have his first meeting of the day with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney before the official G7 welcome event that happens at noon. This is the first international summit of Trump's second term, one with major implications on the domestic front for the president's trade deals and internationally, of course, with that growing conflict between Israel and Iran. CNN senior White House correspondent Kristen Holmes is in Calgary for what will be a busy day. Kristen.
Yeah, John, it's not as though there isn't anything going on in the world, but when you talk to President Trump and his advisors, the real focus for them is the global economy. It is these trade deals and potentially coming back with trade deals. I mean, we have to remember that the backdrop of all of this is, one, a looming global trade war, but also, two, those reciprocal tariffs that he has promised to put in place. That deadline is coming up and coming up fast. It's July 9th, and we expect Donald Trump to possibly even get aggressive with this, which we've seen in the past. Now, he talked about these trade deals specifically when he was leaving for this trip. Here's what he said.
We have our trade deals. All we have to do is send a letter. This is what you're going to have to pay. But I think we'll have a few new trade deals.
few deals there. You said sending the letters. That's something he's talked about, sending letters to these various allies, trading partners, to say what their unilateral tariffs will be if they don't meet that deadline. We know the European Union, Japan are all looking to make those deals. But when we take trade out of the picture, we just talk about these global alliances and these global relationships. The thing to look at here, you're going to see a lot of these leaders trying to really suss out where Donald Trump stands.
U.S. President Donald Trump is meeting right now with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Alberta. This video is actually from moments ago. Let's listen in.
All right, thank you. Mr. President, welcome to Canada. Thank you. It's a great honor. Happy birthday. A few days short. A little bit. A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. Happy birthday to the U.S. military as well, 250th, and this is the 50th birthday, if you will, of the G7. This marks the 50th birthday of the G7, and the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership, leadership of the United States, many issues. Geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership. I'm very much looking forward to the meeting. I'm grateful to have you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it, and we've developed a very good relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things. And we have a whole group of people, some traders and some other people. I see my top economy people. But we have a very talented group of people, and you do too, and I know they work together very well. I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in, and I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in, and you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago, but it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8. And now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war. Other than that, I think we're going to accomplish a lot. And I expect to. And I think our primary focus will be trade and trade with Canada, and I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so much. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, holding up a deal with Canada?
Say it.
What is holding up a deal with Canada from your perspective?
It's not so much holding up. I think we have different concepts. I have a tariff concept, and Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person. I've always been a tariff. It's simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good. So we're going to look at both, and we're going to see what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
Do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure.
Mr. President, have you heard any signals or seen any messages from intermediaries that Iran wishes to de-escalate the conflict?
Yeah.
What have you heard? What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
And what would you say, in your opinion, what would it take for the U.S. to get involved in this conflict militarily?
I don't want to talk about that.
And you mentioned Putin. Do you think that he should have a seat at the G7 today, that it should be the G8?
I'm not saying he should at this point, because too much water's gone over the dam, maybe. But it was a big mistake. Obama didn't want him, and the head of your country, the proud head of your country, didn't want him. This was a big mistake. You wouldn't have that war. You know, you have your enemy at the table. Even I don't even consider him. He wasn't really an enemy at that time. There was no concept. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But likewise, if he were a member of what was called the G8 at that time, it was always the G8. you wouldn't have a war right now.
Why not? What Israel support and what intelligence support are you providing Israel?
We've always supported Israel. We have for a long period of time, strongly. And Israel's doing very well right now.
Why not have China at the G8? Why not have China here, the biggest economy in the world after the United States?
Well, it's not a bad idea. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest. But you want to have people that you can talk to. You know, they don't talk to. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8. As I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted. And, I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced one or two people, along with Obama. He was thrown out, and he's not a happy person about it, I can tell you that. He basically doesn't even speak to the people that throw him out, and I agree with him.
On immigration,
Go ahead.
on immigration, why are you ordering ICE to target Democratic inner cities? What's behind that?
I don't know what you're saying.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democratic.
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York. I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor. But the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals. And, you know, New York and L.A., look at L.A. L.A., those people weren't from L.A. They weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And, yeah, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
That's it. Thank you. If you don't mind, yes. I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So,
Thank you, media.
President Trump, they're meeting with.
Another awkward moment. The fact that the Canadian Prime Minister wanted to end the Q&A with reporters. It was beginning to feel uncomfortable, clearly.
Guys, what we're witnessing here is countries standing up to Trump. And look, I don't think Carney stood up to Trump nearly enough. I want to be clear about that. Carney has bent the knee far too much. This is why we should have elected the NDP in Canada. The NDP would have done a much better job standing up to Trump. Charlie Angus was an NDP MP. The NDP MPs that exist now have been saying that Carney needs to do more standing up to Trump. He can't sell out our industry. He can't make military deals with Trump like the Golden Dome, stupid thing Trump wants to do, because it ties us into the American industrial complex, military industrial complex. You can't stand up to the United States when most of your military purchases, like the weapons and equipment you buy, are from the United States. All of that valid. But it is fair to say Canada has retaliated against the states at moments. We've passed laws, not just at the federal level, mind you. When I say Canada, I don't just mean the government of Canada, but cities, provinces have also passed regulations that have fought back against the United States. And a lot of this is happening because the U.S. started the fight. They're the bully. They picked the fight, so they're going to get popped back. But also, there's not really a political risk. If the United States had a popular president, like if Obama was starting a trade war, it might actually be kind of difficult because, guys, Obama was popular in Canada and popular in Europe. Trump's already reviled. So it's free bonus points for a prime minister or a president to stand up to Trump. And I think some of them are taking advantage, even if behind the scenes, they're actually weaker on Trump than it looks. That applies to Carney. He needs to be much stronger.